Hey friends, welcome to another installment of Strange Planet. And don't forget, please take a moment, give us a 5-star rating, and submit a comment or two. That really helps with the algorithms. All right, on this installment, what drives a music mogul to the edge of depravity? On this gripping episode of Strange Planet, we're going to dive into the explosive sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs with forensic psychiatrist Dr. Carole Lieberman. She'll unravel the psychological forces behind Diddy's alleged double life, trauma, power, and a childhood that blurred the lines of morality. From A-list names like Cassie, Ventura, and Britney Spears to whispers of political ties, this case could expose a darker side of fame. So I hope you'll tune in to uncover what's really at play in Diddy's mind and what it means for Hollywood's elite. Sean Diddy Combs rose to fame in the 1990s as a rapper and founder of Bad Boy Records, launching artists like the notorious B.I.G. and Mary Blige. He built a music and business empire, including fashion and media ventures, becoming a hip-hop mogul. In September 2024, Diddy Combs was arrested and charged with racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation for prostitution. Prosecutors allege he ran a criminal enterprise from 2008 to 2024, coercing women into drug-fueled sexual activities, or freak-offs, using violence and blackmail. He faces over 60 civil lawsuits alleging sexual assault, rape, and abuse, some involving minors, dating back to 1990. Notable accusers include ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura, who settled a 2023 lawsuit alleging years of abuse. Combs denies all charges, pleading not guilty, and is detained while he is appearing in trial. Pleading not guilty and is detained awaiting trial, which began May 5th, 2025, in Manhattan Federal Court. Dr. Carole Lieberman, known as America's Psychiatrist, is a board-certified forensic psychiatrist based in Beverly Hills with decades of experience as an expert witness in high-profile criminal and civil cases. She's dissected the minds of some of the most notorious figures in modern history. She's a best-selling author and hosts Dr. Carol's Couch and the Terrorist Therapist podcast, offering sharp psychological insights into human behavior. Her fearless media commentary has appeared on outlets like CNN, Fox News, and Court TV, where she tackles everything from celebrity scandals to global crises. And she's here to join us to unpack the psychological roots of Sean Diddy Combs' alleged crimes, exploring how trauma, fame, and power collide without excusing the behavior. Dr. Lieberman, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
Thank you so much. And if there's ever a subject good for Strange Planet, it's P. Diddy.
I'll say. So let's get right to the core of the issue and how his close relationship with his mother after his father's death may have shaped his view of relationships and power. How does that work exactly?
Yes. Again, not to excuse P. Diddy, but certainly to explain it. Uh, he's sitting in this courtroom now, accused of all these horrid crimes because of his mother, because of his relationship with his mother. His
Hmm.
father was killed when he was 3 years old, and he was involved with drug dealers, and so he was raised by his mother and his grandmother, and first in Harlem, and then she moved to a place a little above Manhattan, outside of New York City proper. But she continued in both places. She had a very wild party lifestyle, and she would have parties on the weekends where there were drugs, there was alcohol, there were pimps, there were prostitutes, there was sex, there was nudity. It was basically the blueprint for his freak-offs. And so being exposed to this as a little boy, from the time he was a little boy, um, really that got him somewhat desensitized to sex, and he needed his freak-offs had to be even more disturbing, more lewd, in order to get him to feel the same degree of excitement. And it's just like with pills or drugs. When you build up a tolerance to it. If crack gave you this kind of a high the last time, you need more the next time. So, also, uh, he has, one of my books is Bad Boys, Why We Love Them, How to Live with Them, and When to Leave Them. And he fits the Prince of Darkness pattern profile of a bad boy. There are 12 different types of bad boys, and they all become the way they are, particular type of bad boy based upon their relationship with their mother. And so he is the Prince of Darkness type, and that is the same type that OJ was. And so these men are very abusive to women. It starts out because they feel there are instances in their childhood when they feel abandoned by their mother. Now, in some ways, he was too close with his mother, because it was just the two of them. But when she was having these pre-freak off parties, he felt that she was giving her attention to all those people and other men in her life and not to him. So that makes these men, the princes of darkness, become abusive because they become filled with rage when they feel that their girlfriend or wife is not paying enough attention to them and may abandon them because it brings back memories of their mother. Now, um, at the same time, this over closeness with his mother, he displaced some of his rage towards his mother on these women in his freak offs. He had substitutes. Most of the time he had other men, male prostitutes, have sex, like with Cassie Ventura, for example. Um, but that was a way that he got back at his mother, in a sense. He was projecting his rage that he felt towards his mother onto these women.
It sounds almost very classical Freudian, the Oedipal relationship with his mother. Anything in his past or in his profile or his mother's history to suggest? Because quite frankly, I was never a fan of rap music. I never followed his career until now, really. But is there anything in his past to suggest, I don't know, an incestuous relationship with his mother?
Well, it was definitely emotionally incestuous, if not physically incestuous, yes.
Wow. And can we assume? Are we able to assume or speculate that she was deliberately grooming him in this way, or was it a case she just neglected him and really didn't care whether he was exposed to what he was exposed to, or was there a deliberate strategy here on the part of his mother?
Well, I don't think she would have wanted to turn him into what he became, although she wanted him to be famous and rich, however he would go about it. But I think she was just, very involved with herself and just doing things that she liked to do and getting male attention for herself, and not really and neglecting to that extent, at least during these parties and whatever other things she did with men. Um, it was all about getting this for herself. And I don't think I don't think she realized what effect it was having on him, and I don't think she cared. And you know what's interesting? Um, I don't know if you've seen any of the news about the people coming in and going out of the courtroom.
Hmm.
When she first started she's been in the courtroom, I think, every day. And at the beginning, she came in these really décolleté down to her navel, just about, outfits, and so inappropriate. I saw one from a recent, when she was there recently, and she had on a more appropriate, although it was a leopard print, but at least it didn't. It kind of went up to her neck, so it wasn't as bad. I think somebody must have told her, this is not looking good. So she's just kind of in a world of her own.
Right, right. So, and again, this is not to excuse anything. I believe in evil and good and evil. And although these experiences and his environment may help explain how he became who he is. Again, it doesn't excuse it, and I know these are allegations, but based on videotape and things that we've seen and testimony from Cassie Ventura, I believe this. I mean, talk about Prince of Darkness. Yeah, this is evil. But having said that, how does he then manage to draw other people into this wicked world of depravity? I mean, how do we explain all of these other stars how did Cassie Ventura get drawn into this? I mean, do they all have similar stories, similar upbringings to explain why they became victimized or participated in some of this depravity?
Well, Cassie Ventura, I think, was a combination of, hoping that he would help her career, depending upon him being sort of starstruck and hoping that he would help her make a big career, which he didn't really do. But and also she was in love with him, or so she thought. I mean, she was a sad classic story of women who fall in love with princes of darkness, bad boys, and she put up with all that he did, these freak offs. So he would have these male prostitutes have sex with her, and not just regular sex, but all kinds of urinate in her mouth and all kinds of things. And she put up with. She didn't enjoy it. She tried to zone out, which is what people do when they're like little kids do when they're being sexually abused. They zone out so then go into a different kind of state of being so that they can pretend that this isn't happening. But and then and also though he would threaten her all the time, threaten her with violence. She was afraid he was going to kill her, and he also would threaten to expose video of these sex parties, her having sex with these other men. Um, so and putting it on the internet, or so she didn't want that to happen, and she certainly didn't want to be killed. And she was, we've seen video of his beating her and all that. So of course she believed that he could even take it further and kill her. Um, it really sad, and she was afraid to leave him. And it is true that when women leave men who are abusive, that is the most dangerous time. They have to leave in a very carefully planned out way, to be able to sort of disappear, with no forwarding address and no way for the man to reach them. I mean, at least as much as they can arrange for to be, to go as far away as possible. Or, of course, he had big, he had lots of friends, and he had friends who were he would ask to look for her. So she really wasn't able to escape from him. So she would have had to make really very complicated plans to leave. Um, so it's just very sad. Fortunately, there's a little bit of happiness to the story. She seems to be married to this really lovely, loving man. They just had their third child. I'm a little worried. She delivered the child early, and there was some reports of complications. I'm not really sure what that has turned out to be, but I hope, when babies are in a mother's womb, and the mother, whatever the mother is undergoing, if she's watching funny movies, laughing a lot, or if she's like Cassie on the stand testifying for 4 days, having to recall the most horrible days of her life, the pressure of all of that, that was not good for the baby. That stress was not good for the baby. So I hope it turns out, I hope it doesn't have any significant lasting consequences.
She was horribly victimized, obviously, by this, but there also, it would appear that she participated in some horrible acts during these freak offs. Do we excuse her participation because she was sort of trapped in this situation? How do you view that?
Well, she was also forced to take drugs. So I think, the trauma the continuous trauma that she was under because of P. Diddy, I think that that can explain whatever it is that she did.
Right. If P. Diddy had not become a mogul, such a powerful person, I mean, none of this probably would have been tolerated or allowed to continue. Would you agree? Had he not been thrust into the spotlight and become so powerful and influential that he probably would have been in jail a long time ago had he been conducting himself this way?
Yes, it is kind of outrageous that he was allowed to go on like this for so long. And really, it was Cassie's civil trial that kind of started um, the ball rolling, this falling down the mountain, um, because that drew attention to it. But really, I mean, there were so many people who knew what was going on. It's shocking that it took these many years for him to be arrested and I'm worried that there is a possibility that he could get away with this because, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but I worry that a couple of ways. One, if he has so much money that it wouldn't be that difficult for him to get a friend, or pay anybody to maybe someone if he would could find out who some friends of some of the jurors are and pay somebody to pay them to taint the jury. That's one thing. But even if he didn't do that, or if that was exposed, it's possible that there are some people on the jury who um, who would not want to see him found guilty because they would think, well, the government or the courts shouldn't stick their nose in our sex lives. If we want to have sex like this and people are consenting adults and all that, then, it's not a crime. But of course, they weren't all consenting adults. I mean, some of them were. They came. He didn't literally kidnap them to come to his parties. But uh, you know, but things that he did, and once they came, of course, he had blackmail because he had videos of all of this. So so someone could have come to a party. Hey, I got invited to this, big shots party, big, music industry, Hollywood, all of that. Would be people would be flattered, and then they come, and then they see what it is, and then they're hooked, or they're videotaped. So, but I think it was I'm kind of hoping also that we're going to see some of these celebrities who we haven't really heard much about celebrities like Clinton, or like they were taking pills that were shaped in the face of Obama. I would love somebody to testify that Obama was at his party. I mean, it seems very likely that he was. Um,
Did you say
and
likely or unlikely that Barack Obama was at his?
likely. It
Likely.
seems likely that he I mean, they had these pills made in
Yeah.
his face, the shape of his face. Um, so so I don't know. I hope that the jurors are honest with themselves.
The blackmail aspect, it seems that, to me anyway, and I'm sure others feel this way, that it sort of mirrors Jeffrey Epstein's case in that
Yeah.
people were being videotaped for purposes of blackmail, that this was sort of a honey trap operation, which may explain, why he was able to get away with this why he was shielded from criminal investigations and prosecutions for so long. There's even I think, some credible allegations that P. Diddy was allegedly involved in murder and was shielded by some sort of cleanup squad within the LAPD, that he had that kind of power and influence. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, he supposedly, I mean, they have evidence that he put a bomb through Cuddy's Porsche, blew up his Porsche because he was starting to date Cassie Ventura. And yes, and then all of a sudden there were fingerprints that were missing at the LAPD, and that's and his attorneys, P Diddy's attorneys wanted to try to call for a mistrial because someone had testified about that and sort of implied that maybe he was the one who, or someone he knew in the LAPD, who got rid of the fingerprints. Yes, he would threaten all the time that he would kill people, um, if they were going to date Cassie or uh, do something that he didn't want. I mean, he was really out of control, and he had the money to pay to make things happen that he wanted. It's interesting that a lot of the people who have testified so far are worked for him, and I don't know if they were subpoenaed to testify or whether they willingly testified, but it's kind of interesting that they are willing to tell the things, that they told about him, really damning kinds of things.
Also, allegations that some very powerful music industry figures were involved, either in helping him or they were in themselves were videotaped in compromising situations. I mean, this has the potential, depending on how far this case goes and what witnesses are called and so forth. This seems to me to have the potential to bring down Hollywood, or certainly the music industry. It's almost like it's too big. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know whether, I mean, we don't know all the witnesses on the witness list, but I don't know whether I mean, certainly, I don't know if either his lawyers, I mean, I don't think his lawyers would want to call more witnesses, I mean, so they would protect celebrities. They would want to protect, they want as few people as possible to testify about these things. But the prosecutor, or the prosecution team, I wonder if they are going to protect these better known people, not call them to be witnesses. Like, that would be a shame, if they're trying to protect them, or if they were bought off, or, I mean, I would hate to think that the prosecutors could be bought off, but I don't know, I mean, one person that is being harmed by this, and who clearly was abused, in my opinion, by P. Diddy when he was young, was yes,
Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber. Thank you.
Hmm.
Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber, since this whole thing, since P. Diddy was arrested, and as it got closer and closer to the trial, he has fallen apart. He's really in bad shape. And although he hasn't admitted yet, I don't think he wants to admit that he was a victim of P. Diddy, but clearly we know that he was given to P. Diddy when he was like a teenager, and P. Diddy, I remember there was he would say some things like, Justin is going to have the weekend, every teen's dream, or something like that. I mean, he kind of alluded to sexual kinds of things.
Right.
Um, so that's sad
What
because, when you remember when he was being forced to recall these things that he had repressed, undoubtedly, and it was really destroying him.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about what would prevent, assuming Justin Bieber was, and I think it's pretty clear that he was abused and treated horribly and so forth. But what prevents a victim, Justin Bieber, from coming forward? Do they blame themselves? Is it just embarrassment, shame? Is it the Stockholm syndrome? What is it?
All of the above. When people are abused, regardless of how old they are, they blame themselves. They think that they must have done something to cause this, and or they should have been able to say no and prevented it better. Um, Also the shame, not wanting people to know that this happened to him. Um, so a lot of all of this, some loyalty to P. Diddy. He may, credit P. Diddy with some of his success, all of this.
What would you advise someone like Justin Bieber do? I mean, would it be beneficial for him to take the witness stand? Would it be injurious to his psychological and emotional well being? Should he? I mean, what should he do?
I think he should take the witness stand. I think he should, contact the attorneys and say that he will testify because he should take a page out of Cassie Ventura's book. That was very brave what she did, and yes, it was torturous, but I think, she feels better for having done it now that it's over. And I think he would feel better for having gotten it out, instead of holding all of this in.
Hmm. Britney Spears also seems to have been caught up in that web when she was very young, and we saw her just sort of disintegrate her very erratic behavior. She was her she had her parents, I believe, or her family appointed someone to oversee her financial
Right. He had a conservator.
a
A
conservator.
conservator.
Yes, a conservator and then she was very resentful of that. Said that they totally controlled her life. What do you think happened there? What is that a direct result of her relationship with Diddy?
Yes, there are reports of trying to remember that she had been at a party with him and then she had to perform the next day and she was like it was her worst performance. She was sort of in a cloud, foggy, and she was just awful. And so yes, that certainly could be a result of one of his freak offs or his individual freak off. Yes, it's really sad. And I mean, she has um, bipolar disorder underneath all of this, which of course made the whole thing worse. But yes, so in other words, I don't think it was just P. Diddy, but P. Diddy, exacerbated her underlying issues.
You've compared Diddy's control over people like Justin Bieber or Cassie or Britney Spears as a form of psychological terrorism. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes, all his threats. What I was mentioning before, his threats to do physical harm to people, his threats to spread the videos of them in sexually compromised positions, his power in the industry, if they were doing anything in the entertainment industry, his power to blackball them, all of these things, all of these threats, he enjoyed threatening people. He enjoyed expressing his power, making people terrified. Um, because that kind of reflected to him how, oh yes, look, I control them.
My worst fear is that what what was going on with Diddy and these freak offs wasn't an aberration. This may be sort of commonplace. This is the way the world works. This is the way Hollywood works. This is the way the music industry works. That, in other words, this is so much bigger, so much more rotten and evil than we can possibly comprehend. Am I being, I don't know, am I engaging in hyperbole, or what do you think?
So he's not the only one who had kind of outrageous parties. Um, I don't know that. I mean, we know, like for example, there are stories about Hollywood having parties like particularly gay parties or any kind. It doesn't have to just be gay, but yes, because like the casting couch in a party,
Mm-hmm.
like inviting people especially young people who want to get into Hollywood, whether it's the music industry or movies or whatever. and having kind of wild parties, drugs, and all that. I think the difference is that yes, certainly those parties were for the pleasure of the people, the people who had more power, the people who were putting on these parties. But um, but with P. Diddy, his was very specific. Like he would sit in another room and masturbate while these, he sometimes he sat in the same room, but sometimes he was in a different room and he was watching the videos. And masturbating. And so for him, I mean, it was for his pleasure. All of this was for this debauchery was recreating again his mother's parties and enjoying it, being sexually stimulated and aroused and enjoying it like it's a one person big deal, one person's money, one person's party. It seems like it seems like it was over the top more than some other parties.
Should the jurors take his background, his environment growing up, his mother's behavior, abuse into consideration in either sentencing or conviction, deciding on whether he's guilty or innocent?
Uh, Perhaps to some degree, but hopefully still they would still find him guilty. I mean, maybe in the sentencing that could be a mitigating factor. Um, but I hope they don't feel so sorry for him that they don't find him guilty.
Right. How do you think
I mean,
these... Sorry.
because he had choices. He had all the success. He had all these things. He didn't have to do that. He could have afforded a psychiatrist and gotten help.
Exactly. How do you think these disclosures are going to reshape public trust in Hollywood's elite?
I think the public's trust in Hollywood elite is pretty much in the sewer by now anyway, with Epstein and I think the public has lost faith in a lot of people, or even just the idea of people being celebrities or people having a lot of money. I mean, I think a lot of and in institutions, a lot of things have, people have seen that all these, the public has seen that these people have feet of clay, and they don't really worship them as much as they did. I mean, everybody wants to be famous, but that's another thing. Everybody wants to be famous. I mean, that's always happened, but it's even more now because everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody can have their own YouTube and be an influencer or try. So it kind of has watered down celebrityhood to some degree. Plus, the celebrities of today are not the celebrities, that we once had. Not I'm like thinking of the Oscars, for example. They're not the stars of the past. And so I think there's some disillusionment in general.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Lieberman, how can we listen to your The Terrorist Therapist podcast and Dr. Carole's Couch?
Well, Dr. Carole's Couch is on Voice America, and the Terrorist Therapist podcast is on Renegade Talk Radio, renegadetalk.com. Actually, it's Renegade Talk Radio, and also on my website, terroristtherapist.com, and on all the other websites that host podcasts, Spotify and Apple and all of that.
Well, thank you very much for hanging out and discussing the Diddy trial. It's pretty sickening and evil, and let's hope that all of the victims in this sordid affair get justice. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
A new Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.